Hello, in this video we are going to take a look at a program that that deals with how to pass array to a function. So the behavior that we are going to notice when we pass array to a function. So basically what happens is that when we pass an array to a function, then the array is being passed via what we call the array is called by reference. So and when we invoke the function, when we call the function, and then when we pass the array to the function, it is going to be called by reference. By reference, in the essence that the whole memory address of the array is being passed to the function, so that when the function modifies the array, then the modification is going to exhibit in the original array that exists in the function main. So any function that we pass an array to it, and the function happens to modify the array, then it's going to reflect in the original array that exists in the function main. However, passing an element to a function, it is being passed by value. So passing an argument by value means that it is a copy of the element that is being passed to the function. So any modification to that element will not exhibit in the original element that exists in the particular array in the function main. Now, to see how this happens practically, we are going to make use of this program called arrayPass.c. So we have already created this file, and I've written some codes inside. So we have our normal preprocessor directive, line number 6, and then we have two function prototypes. The first one, modify array, is we are going to make use of it to pass an array as well as the size of the array, and then the modify array is going to modify the array, and then we are going to see whether it reflects on the original array that exists in function main. And then in line number 11, we are passing an element to a function. So let's begin to code. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to define an array. I'm going to call it int a, and then the size of the array, I'm going to make use of symbolic constant. I'm going to come off here and then make use of a symbolic constant, and then define the size of the array. So define size is going to be 5. So just an array that consists of 5 elements, and then now I'm going to initialize the element of the array. It's going to be let's see, 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4. So we have created and initialized an array A of size 5 and having 5 elements. So this is 0. All right. Next, we're going to just put a string. Put effect of passing an entire array by reference. And then we have new line characters, new line / new line. Let's see the values of the original array. All right, so let me just the original. Okay, let me come here and fix this. Of the original array. then we are going to print them out. So line number 21, just a prompt, just a string that says effect of passing an entire array by reference. So show the original value of the array element before making a modification to the element of the array, which we know that when we pass, since we are passing an array, a whole array to a function, so we know that if the function modified is going to reflect on our original array in function main. So next we're going to have the string output the original array. So we are going to output the original array, and then we're going to have making use of for loop to output the original array. Since we say that in line number 21 we are going to show the elements of the original array. So here we are making use of for loop to iterate through the element of the array in line number 20 and then print it out on the screen. So we have this size t, which is a data type for defining variables that serves as a subscript index of an array. So size t, say I is 0. We know the array index begins from 0. I less than equals to the size of the array, and we know that an index of an array will not go beyond the size of the array, and then we increment it by 1 to move from one element to another. Alright, so let me deal with this. Okay. Then we end and alright, so now let's see if we can just print this out. Okay, so now for the first time I is going to be 0, and then AI, we know AI is 0, which refers to the first element of the array, is now going to be printed out. And then we have the field length of 3 and a conversion format control string for a decimal integer is percentage sign followed by D. Is going to is just a placeholder that we just going to be replaced by the actual array element, which we know is going to be an integer, since we declare the element of the array as integer in line number 20. So now next, let's see, continue coding. Now next we're going to just put a space. Okay, this empty string, what it's going to do is that it's just going to print out is space for us. So now we invoke the function modify array to modify the array and give us the result. So now we have modify array a and then size. We are passing, just as we have in the function prototype in line number 13, that we are passing going to the parameters here. We can see that the parameters here are the array as well as the size of the array. So likewise here we are passing the array, which we declare and initialize at line number 20, and then we are passing the size of the array, which we specify as a symbolic constant in line number 9. All right. So now what we are going to do, let's go and code the function modify array, and then before we code it, let's proceed. We are going to do, okay, let's code it first. So we have function modify array, so let me function modify array, function modify array. just as we have in the prototype, void means that it's not going to return anything. So this function, after performing its objective, is not going to return any value to the line of code that invoke this particular function. And then we have modify array. Then we have int. We are passing our array, and then as well as the size of the array of type size t size. Okay, so now we have this and function and function modify array, modify array. All right, so what we are going to do is that we are going to simply multiply each array element by 2, and then see whether this modification is going to reflect on the original array that we declare in the function main. All right, so multiply each array element, multiply each array element by 2. So we now make use of for loop to iterate through and then make the necessary modification. So for size t, j is 0, then g should be less than the size of the array. So we're going to be size here, and then we increment g. And 4 and 4. All right, so now we have bj, which is the element, individual element, multiply it by it by 2, then so see the output. So that is just what this function is going to do. That's just what the function is going to do. Just make the modification and then see. Let's see whether it's going to reflect in the actual array that we have in the function main. All right. So now let's proceed with our. Let's go back to function. Let's go back to function main. So now we already have this particular modify array function. We have already coded it. Now we print out something to the user. So the values of the modified array. Then we now print them out. Output the modified array, so modified array. So we now make use of our for loop. I is 0, I less than size, just as we did previously. So what I'm going to do, I'll just go over. I don't need to reinvent the wheel. So let me just at the same time I'm just copy this. The same thing here that we used to iterate through the array element before invoking function modify array to make modification to the array element. So it is the same thing that we have here. Now after making modification to the array element by passing them the array to a function, now we want to iterate through the array element and then print them out to see whether the modification has reflected on the original array that we have in the function main. All right. So now next, after this, we also want to pass the element of an array. So now let's output the value of A3. So output output value of A3. So say format. Effect of passing array elements by array element by value. So and then we see just as we did in the same string that we printed out in passing the array, in passing when we pass the array to a function. So we just want to prompt the user. This is how the array element is before passing it to a function. So the value of A3 is then can now okay. I think just this line, okay. Then we have our the element proper. Okay, so next we now invoke modify element function, which we are going to call next, and then we pass element, the fourth element of this particular array, since we know subscript begins from 0, and then see for the modify element function to make necessary modification to this particular element. So now let's also go and call this function modify element. So we have function modify element, function modify element, function modify element. So now let's see how it is going to be. We said void modify element, and then we are going to pass the element int int. We are going to pass a value, so it's going to be and function modify element, so we have and then we make necessary modification to it, equals to, and then we print it out, print format. So a string value, value of value of the element in modify element is let's new line. And then we have the element that we have modified. We'll now print it out. Okay, so we have also coded this particular function modify element, which we are going to pass an element to it, and we multiply the particular element by 2, and then see whether it is going to reflect on the original element in the original array that we got this particular element from in function main. So now we go back to function main and then print out the value of the element and see whether this modification has reflected on that particular element. So we come back here where we stopped, and then we just see output value of A3. It puts value of A3. So we say French format. Value of A3 is so we have backward slash new line, and then we have our A3. So let's see the A3 whether the modification has reached up to the element in this particular parse array function that we have in function main. All right, so this is the program so far that we have to examine the nature of passing an array to a function. And we know that when we pass an array to a function, it is passed by reference, meaning that if the function happens to make modification to the array element, then it is going to reflect on the actual array that we have in the function main. However, when we pass an element of an array, just a single element of an array to a function, and the function happens to make modification to the element, then it is not going to reflect. It is passed by value, and passing an argument by value means that only a copy of the element is being passed, not an address of the argument, just as we had in passing an array by reference. So just a copy. So just a copy of the argument that is being passed. So any modification made to the element by that particular function, by that external function, it is not going to reflect on the array element that we have in that particular array in function main. All right, so now let's save it. Now let's go and run this particular program and then see whether what we have been saying is true. So let me increase this. So see the documents, programming, C. Let's just sort of click terminal. So we have GCC array pass C. We want to output it as array pass. So we don't have any error. So now let's run this, compile executable, and then see our output. So we have it. Effect of passing an entire array by reference. We have an array 0, 1, 2, 3. The values of the original array are 0, 1, 2, 3. Values of the modified array are 0, 1, 0, 2, 4, 6. The effect of passing an array element by value is okay. So I don't know this 432765 that we have. Let me go back to the code, and why are we having this? Let me go back to the code and then see why are we having those numbers. What are they? What do they stand for? Perhaps we made a syntax error. We have a logic error, not syntax error. Sorry. So the values of modified array are length of 3. Okay, the values of multiply array are, and then we have each of the array element we have a space, like n4 element a by 3, a is 0, length and size we have 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So we have each of the array j length and size. Okay. Okay, let me go over with this tree and let's discuss the issue. So let me go to compile it and then see the values of the original array. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So I don't know these numbers. Why are we having these numbers? So let me look at the issue carefully and then see why we are having these particular numbers. Alright, so the issue is because of this equality sign, because we know that the array index, the last index of the array is always 1 less than the size of the array, and we know that the size of the array is 5. So we have been able to access all the fifth element, all the 5 elements, and then we have even go beyond the array, and we are able to access some element, some values that are in the computer memory, and that are not in our array. So when we are having in our counter, this less than condition should always be less than the size of the array, since we know that the last index of the array is always one value less than the size of the array. So likewise here, so this 3D is not an issue. Size, the modified output, the modified array. So this is just a field length. So let me go back, recompile it, and then let's have our value. Let's see with the how the output is going to be. Okay, CV lectures. So now we have array. Alright, still this issue. Okay, did we compile it? We didn't compile it, so I need to recompile it again. So okay, so we'll compile it, and now okay, so as we can see, the error is gone. So we have the values of the original array as 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then when we pass them to that particular function that modify the array element by making a modification, multiplying the array element by 2, as we can see, we have 0, 2, 4, 6, 8. And then when we pass the array element, which is passed by value, only a copy of the element is being passed. The value of A3 is 6, and then still after returning from this particular function modify element, the value of A3 is still 6. So which proves that passing an array element is by value, not by reference. So thank you for taking your time to watch this video, and I hope you find this video beneficial. So if you find this video beneficial, please subscribe to my channel and click on the like button. Thank you.